I've never seen an army so terrifyingly smart that enemies ran before the first sword was even swung. The Roman army didn't just conquer lands, they mastered strategy, fear, and innovation. From living tanks to deceptive retreats, their tactics stunned enemies and reshaped the battlefield forever. You know what's crazy? The Romans weren't just some guys in sandals swinging swords. They were pure strategic madness. I mean, their battles weren't about brute force alone. Every step, every formation, every charge was calculated to crush not just bodies, but spirits. Discipline ran in their veins like fire. Fear was a weapon, and precision. Forget about it. It was surgical. You could see it in how they moved, how they reacted, and how they planned. According to me, this is what separates a legendary army from just another group of fighters. And trust me, when you see their tactics in action, you'll understand why entire cities and armies dreaded facing them. And here's where it gets even stranger. The Romans basically invented a living tank. They called it the Testudo, which literally means tortoise in Latin. And when you picture it, trust me, the name fits perfectly. Imagine this: rows upon rows of soldiers, shields locked together in front, on top, and on the sides. From a distance, it didn't even look like humans. It looked like one giant, unstoppable metal beast crawling toward you. Arrows rained down, rocks bounced off, spears slammed into shields, and fire tried to burn them, but nothing pierced that wall. I mean, let that sink in for a second. A moving fortress made entirely of men. You could almost feel the ground tremble as they marched forward. And here's the crazy part. Sometimes they even carried horses or wagons right on top of the formation. That's not just defense. That's domination, pure and simple. But let me be honest, it wasn't perfect. The Testudo was slow, painfully slow. And if enemies got smart and attacked from the sides or with cavalry at just the right moment, the whole formation could collapse. The soldiers inside couldn't fight properly while holding their shields. So it was a gamble. Yet most enemies had never seen anything like it. They'd watch in horror as this ironclad tortoise crept forward, and sometimes they didn't even wait. They turned and ran before the Romans even reached them. Can you imagine standing there, knowing nothing could stop this wall of steel marching toward you? What would you have done here? Stand your ground or run for your life?
All right, flankers go! Send in the reserve cohort!
But wait, it's about to get way more shocking. The Romans didn't just rely on one wave of soldiers. They had 3 lines of pure chaos and power, and each line was smarter than the last. They called it the Acies Triplex. Picture this: the Hastati, young, hungry, and full of fire, charging first. Behind them, the Principes, older, wiser, and hardened by experience, were ready to hit wherever the front line faltered. And in the back, the Triarii, calm, seasoned veterans, waiting for the moment things got truly desperate. And here's the kicker. Before any of that, the Velites, light soldiers, darted forward, throwing spears, shooting arrows, and then slipping back through the gaps like ghosts. The lines rotated constantly, tired soldiers fell back, and fresh warriors stepped in. It didn't matter if the ground was flat, hilly, or full of trees, the Romans adapted like a machine. Enemies faced wave after wave, and just when they thought they'd broken through, another line hit them, fresh, organized, and ready to kill. Fatigue set in, panic spread, and morale shattered. You could almost feel the battlefield tremble under the relentless pressure. Imagine standing there, thinking you'd survived the front line, and then another one is barreling toward you. What would you have done? The Roman wedge formation split enemy lines like a human spear, strongest soldiers leading, pressure mounting behind. At battles like Pinda and Watling Street, it carved through solid defenses, causing panic and confusion. It wasn't sheer numbers, but precision and relentless force, turning enemy walls into chaos and proving Roman tactics were as much about fear and control as about combat. And here's the crazy twist. You know the Romans were basically land warriors, right? Well, they had almost zero experience at sea, while the Carthaginians ruled the waves. So what did the Romans do? They invented the Corvus, a massive boarding bridge with a sharp iron spike at the end, literally called crow in Latin. The moment an enemy ship got close, the spike sank into their deck, locking the ships together. And then, Roman soldiers ran across like it was land combat, shields up, swords swinging, chaos unleashed. Imagine being a Carthaginian sailor thinking you're untouchable at sea, and suddenly you're in hand-to-hand combat against Roman legions. Panic, confusion, total shock. Battles like Mylae in 260 BC and Echinus in 256 BC proved it worked. Romans captured dozens of ships and turned naval supremacy into sheer disaster for the enemy. Of course, it had its flaws. The Corvus was heavy and useless in rough seas. But the genius? It turned Carthage's biggest strength, mobility, into a weakness, forcing land warriors to dominate at sea. I mean, that's thinking like a madman, right? And just when you thought the Romans couldn't get sneakier, enter the feigned retreat. Soldiers pretended to flee, luring enemies into a trap. Sounds simple, but here's the kicker. It required insane discipline. One wrong move, and the whole plan collapses. First used in 262 BC during the First Punic War, the Romans learned the hard way from the Carthaginians. But once perfected, it was devastating. Imagine your pride swelling as you chase retreating Romans, only to suddenly find yourself surrounded. Greek commanders Zenoidas and Lucanian leaders later copied the trick, and it crushed armies just as effectively. The psychological effect was brutal. The enemy thought they were winning, their guards down, overconfident, and then panic and chaos exploded in their ranks. Strength turned into weakness, and victory into disaster, all because they fell for the bait. You can almost feel the terror, can't you? One moment, you think you're on top, and the next, the Romans flip the battlefield like it's a chess game. What would you do if the enemy retreat was actually the trap of your life? Would you keep chasing or hesitate and risk missing the bigger picture? During the 52 BC siege of Alesia, Julius Caesar trapped Vercingetorix with double walls, one inward, one outward, using ditches, towers, stakes, and pits. This mix of engineering and psychological warfare crushed morale, leaving the Gauls isolated, panicked, and defeated even before full combat began. It was a masterclass in strategy, patience, and control, where Roman ingenuity made escape impossible and ensured victory through brains as much as brawn. And now, let's talk about something that makes you go, wait, what? War elephants. These were massive, fast, unstoppable animals that could crush men and horses alike. Their thick skin made them almost impervious to ordinary attacks. Facing them head-on, suicide. Romans got clever. Instead of brute force, they targeted the legs and eyes, opened gaps in their lines, and struck from the sides. And here's the craziest trick: fire pigs. That's right, actual pigs covered in pitch or tar, set ablaze, and sent screaming toward charging elephants. The noise, the flames, the panic, it drove the elephants mad. Often they turned back, trampling their own soldiers. This tactic worked in multiple battles: Beneventum in 275 BC and Zama in 202 BC. The result? Chaos inside the enemy army while the Romans maintained control. What's wild is that they didn't just fight brute strength. They turned fear into a weapon, manipulated the enemy's psychology, and exploited the fact that even massive war machines could panic like any living creature. Could you imagine standing there, seeing a wall of fire-charged pigs charging elephants toward you? That's Roman battlefield ingenuity at its rawest. And now, let me tell you about something that makes your skin crawl: decimation. This wasn't just punishment, it was fear made flesh. If a unit showed cowardice, mutiny, or desertion, 1 out of every 10 soldiers was chosen by lot and executed by their own comrades. Yes, their 9 closest brothers in arms had to kill them themselves. Brutal doesn't even begin to cover it. But it didn't stop there. Survivors faced reduced rations, sleeping outside the safety of camp, and a lifetime of shame. The message was crystal clear: fail, and death could come from within. Not the enemy, your own side. Total control over your soldiers was the goal, and it worked. Fear became stronger than any weapon. Famous examples: during the Third Servile War, Spartacus's enemies watched Rome enforce decimation with terrifying precision. Generals like Cassius blamed their soldiers for failures and didn't hesitate to use it. Mark Antony later applied the same tactic after a disastrous defeat in the Media. Even early Republic generals like Gaius Claudius in the Volian Wars knew its power. Imagine being a soldier in that line, knowing a single unlucky draw could mean death by your brother's hands. That level of discipline is terrifying and effective. The Romans didn't just win battles, they controlled minds inside and out with sheer psychological dominance. Rome's army wasn't just about numbers or weapons, it was about strategy, discipline, and terrifying creativity. From living tanks to clever deceptions, they shocked enemies and mastered warfare. Which tactic amazes you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe. I've got way more coming your way.